Hi everybody, I'm Jared Pike. This is Shell Point Today for the weekend of September 6th, 7th, and 8th. Now on today's show, we profile another therapy dog in the Larson Pavilion, the golden retriever named Sammie. But first, it's time once again to get an update on your community straight from the top. That's right, it's time for the Resident Quarterly Meeting with Peter Dice. He'll share all the latest financial information as well as updates on important projects. Bring your questions to the Resident Quarterly Meeting, happening Friday at 2:45 p.m. in the church auditorium. Well, we started the week here at Shell Point TV visiting with a therapy dog named Toby, who visits people in the Larson Pavilion. But that's not the only four-legged friend you may see in the building. Several therapy dogs visit Shell Point on a regular basis, and you can read more about them in this month's issue of Shell Point Life magazine. One of them is Sammie, a 5-year-old golden retriever who is popular with residents and staff in the Larson Pavilion. We visited with Sammie and his owner, Kent Hill.
Sammie's 3 years old. He came from a pet store, local pet store, and he's just been a good dog, well trained. We do it once a week here in Shell Point, and we also go to Hope Hospice, and any requests, personal requests we get, we do as well.
Pet therapy is a wonderful, wonderful thing. It opens people up and it makes them just want to, communicate, and those that aren't communicating all of a sudden will open up and start talking, and it lifts the mood, and not only amongst the residents, but with the staff. Everybody gets excited to see the dog. He's gotten used to seeing me, and he gets excited and bounces, and then he knows he's ready to go and see all the residents, and he sees me for a couple minutes, and then he runs and starts running and see all the residents. It's great.
I think it gives Sammie a lot of satisfaction, but I say I don't do anything but drive and just kind of show up with him, and he does all the work, but it is really rewarding to see smiles on people's faces when they see Sammie. When I put these pants on, these are dress pants, when I put those on Fridays, he gets excited, he starts dancing around, so he knows that he's coming here. And the more that we do it, he really gets received well. He really enjoys it. We have different spots on the way in and way out of this building where people give him treats and remember his name. And hey, he likes it. He gets a lot of attention. He gets more attention today than any other day. So,
have you noticed a difference in the residents since you've started pet therapy?
It is absolutely amazing to watch the residents when you see them go from non-speaking to just pretty much blank stares. Then all of a sudden they light up, they get excited, they start calling the dog. They're like, Sammie, 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 and then they're talking to him. It's really amazing. And then people that are new here that aren't comfortable, and then all of a sudden the dog comes in and it gives them a chance to socialize, and they are just all of a sudden opening up and blossoming and becoming a part of the community. It's just wonderful.
And is this something they look forward to every week and talk about all week?
Yes, they definitely look forward to it. They're always hoping every day's Friday so Sammie can come and visit, and they ask, when's Sammie coming?
For a lot of residents, it might be memory that they have of their own dogs. It kind of brings up memory and story, which is good. And maybe stuff that they haven't thought about in a while. So, and they're easy to love. They're unconditional. It doesn't matter. You step on them, trip on them, and they just get up and say, well, how can I serve you? So it's great. It really is a good feeling.
Coming up, we are replaying all the week's best stories from Shell Point TV. But before we do that, let's talk about all the weekend's happenings, menus, and church news.
Welcome to the weekend edition of Shell Point TV's Happenings segment. I am Bev Chandley, and this is Suzanne Savada, and we're going to go over the whole weekend lineup of activities for you. We're going to start out at 8:15 with the Stamp Ministry in the Stamp Room of the Island. Also, we have at 8:30 the Marketplace will be held in the Administration Courtyard. That goes from 8:30 to 11:30. At 9 o'clock, we have the Round Robin Men's Doubles Tennis going on at the Woodlands Tennis Courts. 10 o'clock's the time we have Canasta, played in the game room of the Woodlands. We start the afternoon out with mixed progressive bridge at 12:30. That'll be in the game room of the Woodlands. At 1 o'clock, the diabetes group appointment will be in the social center down on the island. At 1:15, we have table tennis in the Tarpon room. Also at 1:15, those quilters will be busy in the Osprey room. 2 o'clock's the time that euchre's played in the Sable room of the Woodlands. And then at 2:45, we have the resident quarterly meeting. That'll be at the church auditorium. We round out the day with 6:45 game night at the Resident Activity Center. Head on out there with your friends and have a good time. Suzanne's here with the Saturday lineup for you now.
We'll start Saturday off at 8 o'clock with the round robin men's doubles tennis group meeting out at the tennis courts at the Woodlands. At 9:45, we'll have duplicate bridge in the Manatee Room on the island. And at 10:15, the Model Yacht Sailing Club will be out at the Commons Lake at the Woodlands. At 1 o'clock, chess will be played in the Library Lounge of the Resident Activity Center. Then at 1:15, we have table tennis in the Tarpon Room on the island. At 3:15, basic line dancing will be in the Health Club on the island. And at 6:30, we will have duplicate bridge in the Manatee Room on the island. Now let's go to Bev for Sunday.
We're going to start out Sunday morning at 9 o'clock with Christian Life Studies in the game room of the Woodlands. Then we have Christian Life Studies at the Village Church at 9:15. Our morning worship service at the Village Church will begin at 10:15, and at the same time it will be broadcast live on ShellPoint TV Channel 12. We're going to move to the afternoon at 2 o'clock where Mixed Golf League will be at the ShellPoint Golf Club. And then we have our evening service at 6:15 at the Village Church. We wish you all a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you back here next week.
Menus for your weekend. In the Crystal Room, the Crystal Platter on Friday is baked tilapia with roasted potatoes and asparagus. The dinner special is the seafood buffet for $14.95, and the soup of the day is Manhattan clam chowder. In the Island Cafe for lunch on Friday, enjoy an Alpine chicken sandwich with fries for $6.95. For dinner, the special is Chef's Choice for $7.95. On Saturday, the Crystal Room is closed. In the Island Cafe for lunch on Saturday, enjoy a chili cheese dog with coleslaw for $6.95, and the dinner special is crusted tilapia with island rice pilaf and mixed vegetables for $7.95. On Sunday, the Crystal Room features its Sunday brunch for $17.50. In the Island Cafe for lunch on Sunday, enjoy a grilled ham and cheese panini with onion rings for $6.95, and the dinner special is Chef's Choice for $7.95. All menus are available 24 hours a day at www.shellpoint.net.
Hi, welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm Andy Hawkins, the senior pastor here at the Village Church, and it's my pleasure to welcome David Pavey. David has been serving part-time in an assistant pastor capacity for more than a year, I think, now, haven't you? And it's been a delight having just gotten here and been spending about 6 months or so in ministry. Very much enjoyed opportunities to work with you over the past number of months, and have grown in my appreciation for the experience that you have brought to the pastoral ministry. Just so our viewers can understand some things, you have not only had a history in this country, but you were born in England, and you ministered in France. Is that correct? Tell me a little bit about the background that you've brought.
I was indeed made in England.
Made in England.
And grew up there, came over here to Bible school, but with a vision for mission work in France. Mm-hmm. And after Bible school and university, meeting Nancy, who became my wife, then we went to France. The dream was fulfilled to some extent, and we persevered there for a number of years. Eventually, we spent a few years in the United Kingdom, the land of my birth, working amongst refugees just outside of London. In the context of quite a large evangelical church there, and I'm part of the leadership team. And that was a special blessing too. So we've been at Shell Point for 5 years. Love the church. Love Shell Point. Thank God every day for bringing us here.
Amen. I do too. And it's important that we recognize that we're here having a show that is going to preview the weekend services.
Right.
And what is happening is that this weekend you'll actually be the main speaker bringing the sermon on Sunday morning. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be speaking about this Sunday.
Well, we're going to be talking about the grace of giving. which is sure to bring out a huge crowd.
Of course.
As you can imagine. So that's it.
Maybe you can tease us a little bit about some of the biblical reasons why we might want to give.
Well, it dawned on me recently that the Bible is giving from beginning to end. It starts with Cain and Abel. It goes to Abraham giving a tenth to Melchizedek. It goes to Jacob at Bethel and so on. The tabernacle. People gave so much for the tabernacle that Moses had to say, stop, we've got too much already. There are lots of New Testament stories, the boy with the loaves and fish and the woman with the 2 coins, and on it goes. 17 of the 38 parables of Jesus talk about possessions.
I very much appreciate, by the way, that this is a time to give a message like this, not when we're asking for a particular special appeal or that there are great needs that we're in trouble with. I really appreciate that, because this is really a core value. It's not something that the church does or wants to do only on certain occasions, and I usually bristle when pastors only speak about giving when the need is heavy. But this is a spiritual discipline, isn't it?
It really is. If people want to be prepared before they come, 2 Corinthians 8 and 9 are the 2 chapters I'm going to focus on. And Paul gives a number of, he does a number of things in those chapters which we'll look at. But he says some rather surprising things about when not to give and how much to give and how much not to give and why.
It occurs to me as well that the foundation for our giving really starts with God, who is the greatest giver.
Well, and in this chapter, Paul uses Jesus as an example. He, for our sakes, became poor, that we through his poverty might become rich.
How about that?
And so he says to them, I want you also to excel in the grace of giving. So that's my text.
Well, that sounds wonderful. And obviously I'll be away, but I'll be praying for you and for the Village Church, and I think it'll be a wonderful morning. The evening, we have an opportunity to hear from Daryl Larson, who's an excellent expositor of the Word as well. So it'll be a glorious Sunday as we've enjoyed worship and being in the presence of the Lord and the presence of each other here at the Village Church. And so we're looking forward to that.
Excellent.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us here at Village Church Connections, and we hope to see you this Sunday or very, very soon.
It's time for our Shell Point TV Week in Review. And we began this week by talking about recycling. Hi everybody, it's Jared Pike with Shell Point TV. Today we're talking about recycling, and specifically what you can recycle, what can go in the recycling bin and what can't. And here to help us out is Tony Arias, Environmental Services Manager. How are you, Tony?
Fine, how are you?
I'm doing great. We're here in a trash room at Shell Point, happens to be Teledora, and we're going to take a peek inside. This is in every trash room at Shell Point. They have, let's take a look, Tony. What's in here?
Well, pretty much you have 2 containers for regular trash.
Regular trash?
You will have a container for paper goods. You will have a container for glass, plastic, and aluminum cans.
Okay.
And we also have a separate container for batteries.
Okay. And we've specifically mentioned that the rechargeable batteries, the lithium-ion, the things that go in your digital camera perhaps, they go in here. Now, a very important point that you need to know is that you don't need to separate all your recyclables. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, we actually have the commingle recycling, which means everything can go into one bag. You don't have to separate them.
So you don't have to separate glass, plastic, aluminum, even paper. As long as all the materials are in one thing that are just recyclables, you can put them in the bin, and Lee County actually has the facility downtown that they will separate out. They have automatic machines that will sort out the paper from the glass, from the plastic. That all happens at the recycling facility, so you don't have to do it. However, Tony, what you don't want to do is put trash in the recyclables.
Correct, because that means whatever you have recycled will become trash. So we want to keep them. We're going to keep them separate.
Okay, so if you have a recycling bag and you just happen to throw in a piece of food or some other piece of trash, something that can't be recycled, that is spoiled. That bag, it can't be recycled, and Tony's guys have to throw it in the trash, which kind of cancels out the reason for recycling. Now, let's go down the list again of of things that can be recycled. What are the good things that we do want in the bins here?
We can do, for the aluminum, we can have soda, beer cans, aluminum foil. All that can be recycled into the aluminum container. Also, glass, we can have the soda, beer, liquor, and wine bottles. Jelly, salsa, and mayo jars can be recyclable in one pile.
And I see it says clear glass, brown glass, green glass, they're all okay.
Yes.
They can all go in one thing.
Yes, they can all go in one thing. For metals, soup, juice containers, pet food, tuna, vegetable cans can go in one container. Aerosol cans, they can be in one container, but we have to puncture a hole in it. If you need help with that, you can call 2190 and we'll be able to assist you in that matter.
And hopefully they would be empty. Like we don't want a bunch of old dog food and things in those cans. If you can rinse them out, please do. It would be a big help.
Yes.
And paper.
For paper, newspaper, magazine, brown, white, or color bags can go into one container. Phone books, junk mail, catalogs, office and computer papers can go in one container. What we cannot mix with paper is shredded paper. That has to be recycled separate.
Okay. And also, food boxes, like a cereal box, can be recycled, but the bag inside cannot.
Correct.
Milk cartons cannot be recycled because they are not paper, they're actually wax. So let's go down the list of what cannot be recycled. These are things that you do not want to put in your recycling bin.
Cooking utensils, door screens, lawn furniture cannot be recycled as a part of the aluminum.
Sure, pots and pans or no?
No. Glass, medicine bottles, dishes, drinking glasses, windows and mirrors, cookware cannot be recycled.
Okay.
Metals, tools, car parts, license plates, and cutlery cannot be recycled.
Okay.
Then again, the shredded paper, wax paper, or juice boxes, and
juice boxes, milk cartons, and egg cartons are also no good because they are made of styrofoam or other materials.
Correct.
Plastic bags I saw on there. Talk about those.
Yeah, plastic bags cannot be recycled. Pool chemical bottles, motor oils, and antifreeze containers, we cannot recycle those. We actually have a program so we can recycle those the proper way.
Okay, so if you've got materials like chemicals or oils, call 2190-454-2190.
Correct.
And Tony and his guys can come out and pick them up and put them in their proper place. So, paper bags, yes. Plastic bags, no.
No.
And this list is actually posted in the trash room. You can see right here, every trash room has a laminated sheet where they post the recycling guidelines. If you have any questions about it, check the sheet. Or you can always call the call center, and you guys would be happy to help them, right?
Correct. You can call the call center 2190, and you can request a copy of this. I will be happy to provide it for you.
Okay, so recycling at Shell Point, it's actually pretty easy. Just dump all your recyclables in one bin, in these top bins, not in the trash bags, but in these bins that are here. And we will send them to Lee County, and they will all be recycled. So, for Tony Arias, this is Jared Pike, Shell Point TV. Toby is the name of a therapy dog owned by nurse manager Allison Brown. Her mom, Shell Point resident Bobby Brown, introduced us.
Well, this is Toby, and Toby is a therapy dog. He actually is a multi-generational Australian Labradoodle. These dogs first appeared in Australia, I believe this, in 1955. And they became better known in 1988 when an Australian breeder crossed the Labrador and a standard poodle at Guide Dogs Victoria. So they originally started out as guide dogs in Australia. Now they're widely used around the world as guide dogs, assistance dogs, and therapy dogs. They're highly intelligent, friendly, and very energetic. And they have an affinity for water, and they're very strong swimmers. Their size depends on the size of the poodle that the Labrador is bred with. So they normally use the standard poodles or the miniature poodles. So his lineage is the miniature poodle. But also in Australia, way back, they did mix some spaniel in. So that gives them that kind of spaniel-y, those eyes, those spaniel eyes. Their coats are divided into 3 different categories. There's a wool coat that looks very much it's very tight and curly like a poodle. Then the last kind of coat is the hair coat, which is very similar to the Labrador, with some wave to it, maybe a little bit of curl. These dogs do not shed, and they're allergen free. So that's why they make such good therapy dogs. Now Choby, I have to read his resume. He has a very extensive resume. He is actually 3 years old, and he started his classes at 3 months with the AKC puppy socialization. Then he went into basic obedience. From that, he graduated into basic agility. Then he went from basic agility to rally obedience. Then he became an AKC certified canine good citizen. So he's finished his AKC good citizen certification. Last but not least, he then went through the Therapy Dog Incorporated training and observation, and that training included his obedience instructions. And then he actually went to Lee Memorial Hospital on 3 separate occasions to be observed. And they take these dogs into the orthopedic wing, the orthopedic floors and the neuro floors, so they can see how they react with big heavy equipment like walkers and wheelchairs and things that go bang and bump. And if they pass that, then they become certified. Now he's currently also still doing his agility classes. He loves agility. That's where they run through tunnels and go down slides and things like that. He really is my daughter's dog. And my daughter's name is Allison Brown, and she's the nurse manager, assistant director of nursing on the 3rd floor of the pavilion. And Allison became really interested in these dogs way back in the early 90s and finally was able to acquire Choby just 3 years ago. So he lives in an adult home. He's not had children. They have no children. So he's very comfortable with adults and seniors. He really interacts very well with adults. So Allison is his owner, his trainer, and she's also a certified handler. And she has given me the privilege of going through the certification for handling therapy dogs so I can take him for his visits at Shell Point. And he comes here on Thursdays. He gets dropped off at my apartment early in the morning, and we visit assisted living, and then we go to the pavilion in the afternoon. And then at the end of the day, his mother picks him up and takes him home, so it's very nice to have a grand puppy. I don't have any other responsibility for him unless they go away, and then I get to take care of him. I can't tell you the joy this dog brings to the people who visit with him. We've had residents in the pavilion who really want him to do a pause up on the side of their beds. He's trained to do that. He's also trained to not do anything that is not acceptable. He's only able to do things that he's invited to do. So he's very calm, as you can see, but when this uniform comes off, this is a Therapy Dog Inc. uniform, and he has to wear his tags. We are both insured. We have to have insurance to do this program. It's all volunteer. It's nationwide. Their response is so heartwarming because he's such a gentle soul.
I love you. Yes, I love you. Is that you? He gives me a kiss right there. He kisses you a lot, doesn't he?
He allows everybody to touch him anywhere they want to touch him. I mean, people love his tail because it looks like a feather boa. They like to touch his hair because it feels like silk. It actually feels like silk. and he lets everyone touch him. And when you see the faces of people touching him, it's priceless. They just feel so good. And many times they will tell you stories about when I had a dog, and it reminds them of years ago when they had a special dog or a special pet in their life, and they really resonate with him. They just love to touch him and love to feel him, and he likes it too. I mean, there's no issue with that. When he gets through with his work day and he takes his uniform off, he just becomes a dog again. And he goes home and he plays a wicked game of soccer in the backyard. He's a big soccer player. So that's our Toby.
This coming Tuesday, Adrian Care is giving a timely update on the crisis in Egypt and the Arab Spring as a whole. Let's get a preview.
Hello, I'm here with Professor Adrian Care. We're talking about his first presentation in the fall session of the Academy of Lifelong Learning. Thanks for joining me, Adrian.
Thank you, Terry. It's a pleasure to be here, as always.
Well, we loved hearing you tell us about the Arab Spring the first time, and then you revisited it for us. Who would have known then that we, another year later, will be looking at the Arab Spring continuing, and now what's happened in Egypt?
Yes, although in a small way, back when the Arab Spring first talks started, we shared together with your residents what happens when you take away an authoritarian regime, and we've seen it all around the world, in Iran, for instance. And I did put up a slide at the very first talk saying that nature abhors a vacuum, and so the vacuum that was created when Mubarak was expelled was not properly filled. Looking back on it in the last 2 years, the Muslim Brotherhood, which were the only organized political party, swept away the elections and therefore became the dominant player in Egypt. And democracy was reestablished, the West said. When I was there in April, sadly, the reality was not consistent with the expectations of the Egyptian people. And I met so many people, and I saw firsthand some of the terrible conditions in which the Egyptians had collapsed into. For instance, there were 15-foot-high piles of refuse burning in the streets because they couldn't afford to collect refuse. Food was short. Mothers had to go at 6 o'clock in the morning to queue up in the 120 degrees heat to get a few loaves of bread, which is subsidized by the government. Gasoline, diesel fuel, 3-4 hour waits to get subsidized fuel. All these things in April were pointing to only one solution, which eventually happened. The country was no longer being run properly. The Muslim Brotherhood succeeded in many respects, but they failed in two. One is they took out a witch hunt on the Mubarak regime and their people, which of course impinged on the military. And as it got closer to impacting on the military, they began to resist, and we've seen the result of that. The second thing, and this is what brought them down, was they were unable to run Egypt. And no population will allow a government to stay in place if it becomes bankrupt and cannot provide services. So that is the recipe for a revolution. In this case, it was a military revolution. They stepped in, and al-Sisi and his supreme commanders are now running the country, and surprisingly are doing quite a good job at it. According to my contacts in Egypt at the moment, things have got better. The negative aspect, of course, is the West, and led by the United States, who have been put in a difficult situation because they want a strong, stable Egypt, but they'd also like to see a democratic Egypt. And the two things right now don't fit. And so the huge amount of military aid that the Egyptians get from the United States government, which amounts to over $1 billion a year, is the only card which is really left. But if they play that card too strongly, they'll alienate the military, and then that defeats the object of the relationship. So it's tricky times.
And I just appreciate so much the fact that you are an historian and you know the Middle East, and you have in many presentations shown us how history repeats itself. History is important. Putting things into an historical perspective. Combine that with your visits to the region. I mean, you were just there. You've seen with your own eyes what we see on television and on our computers. And to put that together for us in just an hour and a half, it's amazing.
We hope to cover the whole of the Arab Spring, which started off in Tunisia, of course, and then into Libya and into Egypt. And now, of course, the really, really bad news is the situation in Syria, which is, until recently, was by far the most serious loss of life and civil war situation, which continues. Fundamentally, the Syrian situation is almost impossible to see a solution to. There are too many vested interests from the West and the East. There are too many religious schisms in the country, and there are tribal sectarial issues. I mean, it's the worst. It's a perfect storm in 3 dimensions, and we'll touch on that, and we'll touch on what's happening in Tunisia. We'll obviously bring ourselves up to date on Egypt, Libya, and how the Gulf states are responding to this. They're the wealthy ones. Qatar, for instance, has in the last 10 years become one of the most wealthy Gulf states based on natural gas, and they are funding Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is owned by the Qatar government, and Al Jazeera America starts up very soon, a cable channel in the United States. So interesting how the Qataris are using their wealth from natural gas to try and influence public opinion.
Amazing times in our world. We look forward to your perspective. Please make the opportunity to join us. We're going to hold this program in the church auditorium, so you are welcome to bring your friends in the greater community to hear Professor Adrian Care. And please see the weekly reminder, the Academy brochure, for any fees.
Kay Goodchild knows all about North Captiva, since her parents were the first permanent residents. Let's hear her story.
I was born in Detroit, Michigan, at my grandmother's house. And we lived in Detroit for quite a while, and then we moved to Warren, Michigan. Before we moved into our home in Warren, Michigan, Dad had to build it. So I stayed with my aunt and started 9th grade at Warren High School while Dad was building our first house. My dad, when I remember, was manager of B&B Chevrolet in Detroit, Michigan. Then he went to work for Garwoods. They made cars, and he did the carpentry on it of modeling, making the model cars. And while he worked there, he made me a beautiful jewelry box. He could do anything, and he did do anything. He would hoist a motor up on the tree, over the tree limb, and put it in a car, and take out the old one, put in the new one. I mean, he did everything. We used to go to Florida on our summer vacations. I thought that was the season in Florida. We would go up near Hollywood, and we went to the miniature golf on the beach, and we went to the concessions, and we went to Lion Country Safari, everything. We just had a blast. Moved to Florida in 1957, the day I graduated high school, after many vacations in Florida. And it was pretty hard meeting anybody at that time because I had no school to go to. We lived in Pompano Beach in Crest Haven, which was a little house. And Dad bought himself a gas station, and we had a great grand opening there, and it was a lot of fun. And then Dad bought a garage. They didn't sell gas, but they did all kinds of work in the garage. Dad had a bicycle shop, and there was an apartment attached to it. He was putting in a furnace one time in the apartment all by himself, and it was up high. So he levered it. He got the whole furnace up there all by himself. He's just amazing. All of a sudden, Mom and Dad said they found an island and they were buying a piece of property there. And I think that was about 1970. The first time I remember seeing the property was when they paid for me to come down with my family and stay with them for a week or two. And it was kind of rugged because the place they bought at that time was not finished. It was really primitive, and there were no phones. It was ham radio. There was no electric or gas. It was generators and propane tanks. There was always an airstrip there, and it was pretty rugged, and they had this ramshackle little thing put up just to be funny and said airport. And we came to this island, and there was no way from the boat to get to your house except that Dad had a little wagon that he made, and my son, who was about 8 maybe, he put it around himself and carted it all the way to the house. We went to the beach. It wasn't far from the beach, and we just had a blast. It was wonderful. Kelly used to drive her little cars, matchbook cars, on the railing of the porch, and Dad would be underneath working, and he'd throw them back up to her, so I think she dropped more than she needed to. Nobody that lived full-time except Mom and Dad. It was all people that owned places and just came and stayed. Mom and Dad were the only and the first permanent residents on the island. They loved it. They absolutely loved the island. And Dad started to build his house. One day on their way into town, while they were in town, the home caught on fire and burned down. And they did lose 3 dogs in it, and they were just broken-hearted. Well, Dad just started all over again and built it all over again. He would put in the pilings by putting a pump on his hose and putting it down where he wanted the pilings to go, and it would open up a way for the pilings. He put them all in by himself. Dad loved to fish. He loved to catch snook and other fish. And he found a way of catching sharks. He loved catching sharks. He put a piling in near the beach, and it was probably about 4 foot out of the sand. And he'd put an inner tube over the piling, and he would hook rope or chain or whatever to it, and then a fishing line to that. And he'd get someone in a boat, he'd call them in from the water, "Hey, come here a minute." And they'd take the bait out to the deeper water, and he'd go upstairs and sit on the porch with a iced tea and watch or listen, because he had a bell on it too. And the bell would ring, he'd go downstairs and pull in his shark. He had asked if he could be a deputy sheriff because there was no one on the island that could take care of any problems. So he was able to do that. I don't know what training they had to give him, but he was a deputy sheriff. He patrolled the houses that the people were gone from. He would put sand at the bottom of their stairs, and he'd go over, and if there were any footprints in the sand, he'd go up and check out the house. Otherwise, he wasn't going to worry himself walking up and down the stairs. My mom, of course, came with Dad when he moved to the island, and she wasn't tickled about it. It was kind of, yep, this is what we're doing. So she went along, and when she was 70, she started schooling for a realty license, and she got it. And she wasn't happy working for someone else, so she went back and got her broker's license. So she had her own office in the basement, and she took people out, and everyone just loved Mom and Dad. Every year, Mom and Dad would send us tickets to come to Florida, the 5 of us, and so we'd come for vacations every year. And we had a great time. And at one point, they had ATVs on the island, and I almost put one in the water because I didn't quite turn where I was supposed to. But we had a great time. When Dad died, we brought Mom off the island immediately because she was kind of dependent on him. And after Dad died, we started doing reunions on the island. My brother owned the house next door, and then, of course, Mom owned the other one. And so we would have big reunions, and we'd rent another house, and we had about 30 people, usually on Memorial Day, and we changed it to Labor Day later on because of hurricanes. One day, I guess it was after Mom died, I asked Winton, "What would you do if I died? Where would you live? Would you stay here?" "Nope, I'd get a fish farm." I said, "Well, why don't you do it now?" "Oh, So he went in North Fort Myers, and immediately we wanted it. He wanted a fish farm of fish you could eat, but this was a tropical fish farm, freshwater tropical fish. He loved it. He really loved it. He'd sit on a little bucket next to the fish ponds and bring them out in a net, and then he'd sort them, and he'd throw back the ones that weren't any good or that were too small or too big, because you only had to have the perfect size to sell. And alligators would come up and go, arf, arf. And so he'd throw the fish that were wild fish over to the alligators, and they'd eat them. We saw a little baby cow, probably 3 days old, between the two fences. And when I got home, my husband said, "You've got a baby cow to take care of," because everyone else on the farm had jobs, not me. And I fell in love with her. She was red. And I called her Bambi because she looked just like a deer. Well, this Bambi is now 1,200 pounds. And she doesn't look like a Bambi anymore. She was my pet, my baby. Things are different on the island. Now you have telephones. You have, you don't really have cars and trucks like we had back then. You have just golf carts, and that's all that's allowed on the roads there. And it's pretty much the same in a lot of ways. And people still come for vacations and don't live there that much. I'm not sure how many people live there full-time now, but there are some. I guess it's called changes. I've had a lot of changes in my life, and they've been all cool. I like just about anything, but it was fun.
Carol Clark joined us to talk about the annual wellness visit, a free service offered by the Shell Point Medical Center.
The annual wellness exam is also one thing that Medicare put into place because they showed that it actually works. If you come in once a year to have the physician review with you what the mammogram was, what the colonoscopy was, what the chest x-ray was, or any other visits that you've had with other specialists, you kind of come in for a review session. You have a little vision test, a little memory test, and it's a 50-minute appointment where you and the provider have a chance to just kind of talk about what's gone on in the last year. Medicare believes that piece is important because the doctor reviews all the other specialists that you've been to and sets your plan for the year to come. So if you've had, let's just say, a question about how many times do I have to have mammography, how many times do I have to have pap smears, how many times do I have to have a PSA drawn, you can have all of those annual types of things reviewed and then set a plan for what works when you're 80, what works when you're 85, when do I have to stop doing all these things, or what should I start doing in order to stay well. The other place for this wellness service is fitting just like a glove with our MyQuest program here at Shell Point. It isn't that your provider needs to know that you're trying to walk 10,000 steps every day with your pedometer. They're not going to pry into that. But what they would like to know is, what are your MyQuest goals and how can I help you achieve them? So if you get out on the path around the island and you start to feel sweaty and a little pressure in your chest when you're halfway around, then you might want to come to the provider and say, you know, this is my goal. I want to do these many steps, but I'm not feeling so well when I get about halfway around the island. That would be a good time to say, you know, this is my MyQuest goal, but I'm struggling to achieve it. And then get your provider to help you with that. It's a very nice opportunity to have more than 10 minutes or more than 20 minutes with your provider, because you're actually with them for almost an hour reviewing what the last year has been about and what the next year needs to be about. The annual wellness visit is no out-of-pocket expense. Unless you're less than 65, then you'd want to wait till you are 65. It includes the basic assessment of health status, review of goals for weight, blood pressure, and exercise, and some of the screening tests. Be careful in your language to not call it that annual physical. We can't call it an annual physical either. because it goes in the garbage can at Medicare. They don't pay for an annual physical anymore, and they would just reject it and then send you the bill for a couple $100. The all-important wellness visit. Schedule the annual wellness. It's in your best interest, and it will help you organize your plan for health. Organize your medications and supplements. Bring them with you in a little caddy to every visit. Communicate your MyQuest goals and partner with your provider on this matter of how much exercise you'd like to be able to do, and whether or not you should be cleared for certain types of endurance. And avoid my list of complaints and focus each visit on the main problem you need help with. The Shell Point Medical Center wants to be there for you at all times. And we are staffed with either someone there in the medical center or on call 24/7. So I've had several people say, well, it was Friday night, so I didn't call until Monday. And by that time, their shingles or their cough or their sore throat or whatever was full blown. So please remember that someone can be available to help you 24/7.
Next Friday, Sheila Sklar begins an academy class on reminiscing. Let's learn more about it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Terry Kolath, and I'm here today with Sheila Sklar. Dr. Sheila Sklar lives in Eagles Preserve. Thank you for joining me, Sheila.
My pleasure.
It is very exciting to introduce a new series in the Academy, Life Review and Reminiscence.
Yes.
And we want to share a little bit about that today. What would you like to say?
Well, I think it's something that everybody in our age group can benefit from. Not only benefit, but also enjoy. Okay. It's a matter of getting together, talking about a particular memory. There will be a theme in every class, and so we'll all share in the theme, and then the person can talk just about their experience. Other people might want to say, well, they had the same experience, and it just brings a sense of integrity to one's life, because what happened in the past is who you are in the present, and and then to share it with other people is such a pleasure, because you're not alone, and you know other people have had the same experience. One of the things that I got in the email, I'm sure other people receive the same kinds of things in the email, are these jokes. And one of them I got yesterday, which I printed out, was, did you know anyone or know whoever took a class in school? And it's a bunch of girls learning how to type to become secretaries. Well, nowadays, 5-year-olds know how to type, so they don't have to take a typing class. Right. But this brings back some wonderful memories of youth and how you handled it and what your parents wanted you to do and what you wanted to do, and now is the outcome of all these experiences. Here's a 45 record, which I don't think my grandchildren have ever seen,
and how wonderful, because they do bring back memories.
Yes.
And the progression of technology, how our lives have changed.
Yes, and one of the others, which I especially loved, believe it or not, is this ice cube tray. Yeah. Because I can remember, I was thinking about it, and I can remember trying to pull that lever, but there was too much water in the tray, and the ice cubes wouldn't come out because they were stuck to the lever. And then it made that remind me of a party I once gave. And then that made me think about the parties I give now. So I can see the integration of my past and my present. And hopefully I'll have more parties, and that will be my future as well. So I think if I started to talk about my ice cube tray, I'm sure you probably got tweaked something about an ice cube tray. And that's what the class is going to be doing, is regaining memories, regaining experiences that you've put aside, but they're still a part of you, but you haven't recalled them in years, maybe years and years. Mm-hmm. And now is a chance, an opportunity to express them, to realize them again.
And we know, I mean, I've done so much reading about how important it is in our older years to review our lives, to experience this reminiscence. And Dr. Vadalato and I enjoyed so much talking to you, because we were hoping you would take on the project of this class with your incredible background as a therapist, a doctor of psychology, your long illustrious career, and your love of people.
I think people are going to want to talk so much. We're having this for an hour and a half rather than an hour, and I hope that everyone will have a chance to express themselves. And if we have to run longer, oh my.
And that's why we have to keep it a smaller class. Yes. But we're hoping that you have so much fun that this will only be the first class from Dr. Sheila Sklar.
I can't see anything but fun. And even if someone recalls an unhappy memory, just recalling it helps you heal. So there's nothing negative about it. Everything is all positive.
No, and life is a series of losses. We know that.
Yes.
The older we get. But being able to talk about these experiences with fellow residents in a nice small group. Yes. How wonderful. What a gift you're giving us.
Oh, it's going to be my pleasure, I know.
Thank you so much. We encourage everyone, if you're interested in this Reminiscence Life Review, to sign up for Dr. Sheila Sklar's class. It's running for 6 weeks beginning Friday the 13th.
The Shell Point Gift Shop has some great merchandise and some great volunteer opportunities.
Hi Shell Point, I'm Melody Desolé here today in the gift shop with a very special president of the gift shop board, Barbara Hilton from Lakewood, and she's here today to introduce us to a friendly face. Go ahead, Barbara.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our gift shop. I'd like you to meet our new merchandise manager, Bobby Peterson. She came on in April and we're so happy to have her. Many of you will remember Floss Jemison, but she had retired, and so we looked and we found the right person, and this is our merchandise manager, Bobby Peterson.
Thank you. And again, welcome to the gift shop. Now being supplied by, I'm proud to say, about 110 suppliers. 110 very talented Shell Point residents, and I'm so proud just to be working with them and representing them. So I'd just like to take you on a little stroll of the shop if I can.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, first, in this little corner is our children's department. Handmade dresses, sweaters, crib blankets, just perfect little gifts for all. It's not grandchildren here at Shell Point now, it's great-grandchildren. So coming over here, we feature all our jewelry. And jewelry, of course, is a very big item here at the gift shop. We have many people participating in that. So we have just created a display center for them. And here we focus primarily on people in the woodworking shop, people in ceramics. We're proud to say that one of our very newest suppliers is now doing some of the glasswork, stained glass work that we have. So we're very happy to have someone doing that for us. And then I'm sure many of you know that there are some wonderful authors here at Shell Point. And we carry all their books here. And just do look at this beautiful set of birds made by a gentleman in the woodworking shop. I can't tell you how talented our residents are. They do absolutely magnificent work. And the ladies making their scarves, it's just all so beautiful. Over here we've just tried to focus on a few toys for the children. We have our crayon truck. We even have yo-yos for everybody. But this is what we've tried to put in this area. And then over here, it's just a display of pocketbooks, jewelry, knitted shawls, hats, just a combination of everything. And they're all just so beautiful. Then coming over here, our shell people on the shelf here. Kitchen supplies, and then cards. Beautiful cards made by our residents. They're over here, all along in this area. And so that basically gives you an overall view of what we have here in the shop. and welcome you all to come in from 9:30 to 12:30 until October 1st, which we will then be open all day just to help you. So please come and see us.
So it's apparent Bobby is very knowledgeable about what's going on in the gift shop, and it seems like you've taken on this position with such a gusto because you've only been in the position how long? A few months? And you know your stuff. So that being said, this Oakmont representative is a very great addition to the gift shop board. Now we're moving on. Barbara, can you tell us a little bit more about greeting cards?
This is one of our biggest sellers, are the commercial greeting cards that we have. 50 cents each. You don't have to go out to the store. We have all different varieties available for you here. And not only does our gift shop have the cards here, but we also have people that are taking the cards to King's Crown, the Arbor, and the Springs. And that way everyone is having the ability to choose the cards that they like and send to their favorite friends, family, whatever. Remember, they're 50 cents each. That's including the tax. That's good.
Yes. So as you can see, there's a lot of well-crafted or enhanced items that are done by our very talented Shell Point residents. So if you are someone that's a crafter or an artist and you have an interest in perhaps selling through this consignment shop, you can do so by contacting Bobby Peterson. And Bobby, what's your telephone number?
At 482-3779. And my very efficient secretary will take your message.
Now, in addition to suppliers, we're also looking for volunteers to join this very happy family. So if you're ready to join this charismatic team of gift shop volunteers, you can do so by contacting me, Melody, at 454-2290. We hope to see you out and about on the island at the gift shop from 9:30 to 12:30 up until October, and then from 9:30 to 3:30 October through season. Thank you for joining us.
We're glad you joined us for today's show. Tune in next week for more stories and news from around your community. Until then, this is Shell Point Today for the weekend of September 6th, 7th, and 8th. I'm Jared Pike, and from all of us here at Shell Point TV, we hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you again on Monday.